Hello and welcome to Disc Dandies, a podcast where each episode, two friends share a recommendation with one another. We talk about what we liked, what we would change, and try not to judge each other too much over our bad tastes. This episode, part 3 of our Game Pass summer, we wear our flame print beanies while we munch on lots of Mountain Dew and Doritos. Let's get into it.
So, Will, you know what isn't overrated?
There are lots of things that are overrated, but what are you going to bring up?
I'm going to say what isn't overrated.
Okay. What isn't overrated?
Getting the fuck out of work.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. You have some exciting work news to share with us all, don't you?
Yeah, lack thereof, I guess. I am on vacation for the next week, and I guess it didn't really occur to me, or it didn't really settle in until I got off. And even then I was still kind of getting some inquiries from coworkers about some stuff. I guess that they had forgot to bring up before I clocked out. But now I think I'm in the clear, and it's starting to really settle in that I'm not going to have a bedtime for the next week. And I'm super hyped about that.
Nice. Yeah, bedtimes are for nerds. Yeah, I bet you have it all planned out, how much you're not going to do, all of the high intensity activities you're not going to partake, all of those errands you don't plan on doing, and all of those healthy meals you don't plan on eating. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to do just enough to keep myself and my family alive and no more.
Well, that's good. That's good. Congratulations. I hope you have a wonderful vacation. I'm glad that you're spending at least a little bit of it with me and our listeners. So I bet on our next episode, Back Matter, I plan on hearing exactly how little you've done in the last little bit between episodes. Well, that's good. Congratulations. I'm. It's been a while since I've had a vacation. I really need one, but it's just I'm too socially awkward to go up to my boss and ask for a vacation, so it's a little tough. But man, I'm gonna live vicariously through you, at least for the next little bit.
All right, I'll be bringing the hot and good vibes for you then. But yeah, you got to lean into the proletariat mindset and get that vacation, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one thing that's very good for you to do on vacation is Disc Dandies exhortations, and I hope that today you're bringing a great exhortation that would be a lot of fun for you to do on your vacation.
I actually chose one specifically catered to that reason, and we'll come back around and talk about it here at the end of the episode. But in the meantime, we got to talk about the one you exhorted us with. But beforehand, I have a question for you, Will.
Yes. Please spill your questions all over me.
Okay. I promise this isn't an Elden Ring question. I'm actually not going to talk about Elden Ring here. But what game coming up has your the most of your attention?
This is an Elden Ring question. Yes, I get it. Okay. No, we were actually just talking about this a little bit before we hopped on to record. But we just got a new trailer for Deathloop. This is the next game from Arcane Studios, who brought you our previous exhortation, Dishonored, and then also things like Prey and a few others. I am super excited about this. It's definitely showing off its immersive sim qualities, which I've spoken about on this podcast, and the gameplay looks like it's right up my alley, and I'm just really digging the aesthetic, the vibe, this Groundhog Day murder island, and these two people who may or may not hate each other's guts, who are trying to just kill each other over and over again. I'm super hype for it. So that's top of my list. What is on the top of your list for everyone who has not heard a single episode of our podcast?
Like I said, I'm not going to talk about Elden Ring here. I think that's the obvious answer. This is actually an outlet for me to talk about a game that I'm super hot and excited about. That is coming out this year. in December, there's a remake, or I guess remaster. I don't know how, like to what extent it's being like combed over. But Advanced Wars, have you ever heard of that
Oh,
series?
yes, yes. I have heard of it. I remember back years ago when I used to have the original DS. I really wanted to play it when it was coming to the DS, but I never got the opportunity to do so. So I have no experience with the game.
Yeah, well, so this last Nintendo Direct, their E3 Direct had a lot of like goodies in it. Like I'm a big Metroid fan, so like the new Metroid Dread is like something I'm really excited about.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I watched the Direct, that wasn't the thing that like took me away. It was actually like the trailer for like this remastering of the Advance Wars games. I played them very lightly on the Game Boy Advance. I never owned them. I played like a friend's copy, and by the time I got around to wanting to go back and like get them and play them, they were really expensive and really hard to find. And they've kind of stayed that way. And there are alternative ways to play it, play the series. Like ROMs and what do you call it? But and I guess I could like spend the money to go out and get a cartridge. But Nintendo did us a solid and is releasing the game, like the first and second game remastered with like updated visuals and sounds and music and stuff. But I gotta say, like the reason I am specifically excited for this, I'm a big fan of grid-based strategy games. That is probably my favorite genre of video game, and probably the one I've played the most in my lifetime. And this has been like a pretty like sore blind spot in that catalog. Yeah, I don't know. This is just an outlet for me to talk about that. I feel like I'm going to be talking about a lot of From Software stuff over the course of the next 6 months, but gotta give a shout out to like something else I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just let everybody else know that there is another different type of game that you
There
like
are
to
other
play.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that you're a big Civ boy, and you're a big fan of that game. So it doesn't surprise me at all to hear that Advance Wars and games like that are also on your radar.
Yeah. The like grid based like Fire Emblem and like Final Fantasy Tactics, stuff like that are just like baked into my DNA at this point. And I think it was like a year ago they released a what is that game? Crystal. It's the Jim Henson movie, or I'm trying to remember it.
The Crystal Palace.
Dark Crystal. No, Dark Crystal.
Oh,
That's
okay.
it. Yeah. So they made a Dark Crystal video game that was a turn-based, like grid-based strategy game, and that just got my mind going. I was like, man, if they're willing to like adapt Dark Crystal, do you think they would ever do the Muppets?
The Muppets real-time strategy. That is quite the idea.
I would love that so much. Just like, a road trip Muppets game where you're playing as the various Muppets on a grid. This is like a $1 million idea, and I will give it to anyone for free.
Patent
that can
pending.
make it happen.
Patent pending.
Yeah.
I'm taking the patent. It's mine. Patent pending. Patent pending.
Okay, well, I want to get talking about your exhortation this week, but I guess beforehand we got some we got some other like more clerical things to talk about.
Sure, absolutely. Engagement, call to action, will. Everybody, thank you for listening to this episode of Dandies. It really does mean a lot to us, episode in and episode out. If you like what we're doing here, please think about leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Audible, any of the places that you can review this podcast. Leave us a good review, and if you leave a nice note, I'm definitely interested in reading those on air. If you did not know, all of our episodes are on YouTube, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, give the episode a like if you like it. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like for more of that juicy Dandies content. The bell icon's there for notifications if you'd like that. But more than anything, we love comments. We want to hear what you have to say. What do you think about our exhortations? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you think that we have all the right opinions? Are we misinformed about everything in our lives? Let us know. Leave a comment on the YouTube video, or you can tweet at us at DisDandiesPod, and I definitely want to read any of those comments or tweets that we get on the podcast as well. So that being said, let's talk about this week's exhortation. This is one that I felt was just a shoo-in for our Xbox Game Pass summer. And it's a game that I have actually not played, but have knew a lot about just through osmosis. I was not surprised to hear that Jordan has played a ton of Halo 3 in his life. So this is kind of one of those reverse exhortations where I exhorted it, but Jordan knows way more about it than I do. But yes, we are talking about Halo 3. This was released for Xbox 360 in 2007 by the studio Bungie, and this is their kind of their last mainline Halo game. They made this one, and then they made two sort of spin-offs. I don't know if that's the correct term for those, but Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach, after this one. But after these, 343 Industries took over the franchise and came out with Halo 4. So this is their last mainline Halo game. I would say that this game was very highly anticipated at launch. I think it was very clearly what some would consider a killer app for the Xbox 360. And I do remember, even though I did not play this game, I do remember some of the excitement that was going on in gaming circles when this game was about to be released. So, Jordan, I know you know way more about this game than I do. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background with Halo 3 and how you felt kind of coming back to this game as an exhortation?
Yeah, so I played Halo 1 and 2 on the original Xbox pretty much as they released. Was a, like my dad introduced me to the series, and I played through the campaigns with them, and we played a lot of like LAN party-esque multiplayer games with like friends and stuff, friends and family. That was my engagement with Halo up to Halo 3, and I gotta say, like, the hype for Halo 3 whenever it was first announced was like fever pitch. Partly because Halo 1 and 2 are tough acts to follow. The fact that they like didn't just stick the landing, but they made two very influential, very like popular games that just like didn't really disappoint. And then the cliffhanger of an ending of Halo 2, just kind of like those two things in like combination just made everyone like they were losing their minds when this game was coming up. I don't think there were many other games at the time that could compete with this game in terms of just like pure hype train. And when it came out, I mean, it delivered pretty much unanimously for myself, for my friends. Like the reviews were really good. It was just like a very well beloved, strongly received game, and it made a lot of like innovations within the series and the first person shooter genre. At the time, it was like my favorite game. I felt pretty strongly about this back then, and of course, it was like kind of a nice opportunity to put on the rose tinted glasses whenever you brought it up as an exhortation and kind of revisit it. And I've come away with, I guess, a more modernized look at that game and where it stands among first person shooters today. But I mean, what about you, Will? What did you think about Halo 3?
Yeah, we do have to kind of think of this game almost as a maybe not vintage, but it's almost a retro game at this point, coming out in 2007. Wild. That's like what, 13, 14 years
oh my God.
Since this came out. I did know that Halo 3 is well regarded in the FPS community for being a high watermark for FPS shooters, at least until Modern Warfare 2. So I knew that this was well loved, and I was looking to see why exactly it was as I was playing. And I gotta say, I had a lot of fun playing it. I was definitely taking a look at it kind of with that looking back and seeing if it held up to today's standards sort of lens. But overall, it was just fun to play. I definitely can see why this is looked back on fondly, both with the single player and the multiplayer. But yeah, I can definitely pick out a few things that would not fly in compared to today's standards. So overall, I really enjoyed our time with it. I only played about I would guess about halfway through the single player campaign, and then you and I were able to do a little bit of co-op on the single player, and do a couple of rounds of multiplayer together. So that's the extent of how much of this game that I played. Were you able to get all the way through the single player during this exhortation, or how far did you get into it?
It's hard to say with like I guess for the uninitiated, but this is like a really short game, and like I have like the story and gameplay kind of like baked into my memory. So for me, it was just like starting it up and just kind of playing it until like I guess until the muscle memory set back in. I hit probably so we played a mission together. I'd say like one like full stage. I think I made it like a couple past that.
Sure.
I can't really like I don't know if you're planning on like finishing the game, but like I have to like basically this game is about finding Cortana. I have made it to the mission where you find Cortana.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. But it seems, based on the conversation that we had, it seems like this game is just so ingrained into your memory that, like, you know the game without really having to play it over again. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I mean, I played, no exaggeration, I probably upward of like 1,000 hours of this game. Like this, like we're talking like for like a couple of years there. That this was like all I played online with friends. We had just gotten internet. Everybody was playing this. It was like the multiplayer game for a good chunk of time. Like I said, till the Modern Warfare series took over, and I just dumped tons and tons of time between the co-op and the multiplayer. So it was just one of those things that's like I could probably beat for beat tell you what happens like in the story, like what people are saying, like cues in the environment whenever like Covenant or like background things are happening. Like it's just all there.
Sure. Yeah. So, all right. So let's get into a deeper discussion here. But I want to give a quick story overview just to kind of put some background into what we're going to be talking about. So this game is a direct story sequel to Halo, the first Halo, Combat Evolved, and Halo 2. And you're playing as the not almost, like iconic video game character at this point, Master Chief, as he crash lands onto Earth and just immediately has to start fighting back against a Covenant invasion, while the Covenant are searching for something called the Ark, and I believe later in the game you do find out what that is. About halfway through, another alien faction called the Flood, almost like parasitic zombies of some type, join in halfway through. So you're kind of fighting multiple types of alien invasions on Earth, and you're basically playing as Master Chief, an elite soldier that runs around, and does a lot of first person shooting to like achieve objectives and fight back the invasion of these aliens. But let's move on into the gameplay of this, and there are really two aspects of this game. There's the single player campaign, and then the multiplayer, which kind of has a lot to do with the longevity of this game. But we played a lot of the single player, and I would have to say, starting the single player campaign, it was immediately apparent that this game was built for co-op from the ground up. It really seems like they want you to be playing this with another person, either in person or online.
Yeah, they even went as far as like the Halo series has always had like a co-op single player. In the first and second game, you play as like duplicates of the same character. Basically, there's like two Master Chiefs that you're playing as pretty much throughout both campaigns. And in Halo 3, they actually designate a second named character as the second player, the Arbiter, who made his first appearance in Halo 2. So like it is one of those that they were like, hey, look, we are very mindful of co-op play to the point that we have two named characters as the first and second player, which was nice, because up until then it was just like a little goofy, like going into a cutscene and having two of the same characters.
Yeah, that's a little goofy. And we gotta remember that this came out. This was the first Halo game for the Xbox 360, which was, like 2007. That's really kind of the beginning of widespread internet play. The Xbox 360, like from that console from the ground up, being built for internet connectivity and being able to play over the internet. So it seems like it was really important to make sure that the single player campaign was tailor made for playing with multiple people, and I think it really pulled it off. It didn't seem like it really mattered when you were just playing by yourself, but I noticed a very sharp increase in just enjoyability and fun when you and I were playing co-op together. Would you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. There's like this kind of like sloppiness that comes, like a good sloppiness that comes with Halo cooperation. Like one of the first negative things someone will point out about the campaign is like, oh, it has friendly fire. Why does it have that? And honestly, it's like kind of part of the charm of the series, if you could like understand that or believe that, because it's like the gameplay is so like physics based. And like like grenades, like frag grenades bounce. There's a lot of like proximity based weapons that where you'll like kind of zip in and hit someone. It's one of those games that are like the comical things will happen on your own, but twice the amount of comical things will happen when you're with another player. And I've always, that's always been like the way I've played Halo. I never really played it by myself as far as the campaign goes.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense to me. If you're playing co-op, it makes sense that you would need to cooperate, right? So
Yeah.
having friendly fire and having like crazy things that can really mess up a co-op game experience seems like it needs to be there. So you can't just run and gun it and not have to worry about the person that you're playing with. It really is like you're playing with each other, not just you're playing the same game at the same time, kind of independent of each other. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of your actions matter a lot more in that sense too. You can't just like throw a grenade in the middle of the room and ignore what's going to happen, because it hurts both you and your co-op partner and any of the NPCs that are nearby. So it like, at least for me, it just kind of added a lot more like risk to the gameplay, because you're already made to feel so powerful as like the Master Chief. So like in those moments, it also like lends a lot of like levity too, because you and I were playing last night, and I had told you, like I think you had killed me a couple of times or shot me a few times or something like that, and you were like, yeah, I'm committing a lot of friendly fire, and I was like, oh yeah, just wait until you get an energy sword. The first time you accidentally kill one of your cooperators with that, you feel real dumb. Not even like, I don't know, what, like 30, 45 seconds later, you got one and it happened.
It was an accident. It was an accident.
I don't know about that. That kind of seemed calculated.
I don't know. I really didn't appreciate how you immediately after you respawn picked up a energy sword. Probably the one you dropped, I think, and told me to not worry about it and to make myself around and available. I didn't appreciate that.
Yeah. I like you definitely got to get yours back whenever your co-op partner kills you. You give and you receive.
Sure, yeah, but I want to highlight that co-op was really fun, and I think it was a good thing for them to build this game from the ground up with that in mind. It was definitely a step in the right direction, especially for 2007 and the widespread adoption of playing over the internet.
Yeah, for sure. And so, how did you feel about like the big moments in this game? For example, like one of the missions we played, there was a giant, what's called a scorpion tank. It's basically like, it looks like a giant insect with a giant like laser cannon on its back, and you're supposed to take out its legs so that you can board the ship and then kill everyone on it and blow the ship up. Stuff like that will kind of happen in the middle of like a mission. How did you feel about that implementation, and was it fun?
Those were really cool, and I would say that's one of the more impactful parts of the single player for me, were these huge set pieces. Like this game, like even though you were one person and you were always shooting at just like one or a group of enemies, this game really made you feel like you were in the middle of something bigger than yourself. And then moments like you mentioned where you have to fight the spider Metal Gear, alien spider Metal Gear, and you have to fight it and like disable it and then hop onto it and do whatever you need to do to like have it blow up. Those were really cool, and they really made you feel like you were a part of something bigger than yourself, especially if you were playing with another person and you got to like strategize and cooperate on trying to like fight through this huge battle that's happening all around you. I think that's one of the things this game did very well, was kind of put you in like this action set piece and make you feel like you really are a part of the action. That was really impactful for me.
Yeah, I think that's something like I think about a lot too whenever it comes to not just shooters but just like action games anyways these days, is like that Halo chaos. Whenever you have something that is very chaotic and there's like death basically in all directions, like whenever I say that I mean like one wrong move in like a direction that you could be like insta killed by something, without it feeling too oppressive because it has like a decent checkpoint system. But you know what I mean, like it's one of those things where it's like you have to calculate your actions. You can't just like jump into the pit of like the action, whenever done well in video games, like my mind kind of goes back to how Halo did it, which is like, you have so many moving pieces, but it still feels somewhat orchestrated.
Yeah, that does seem to be kind of what Halo is known for in a way, at least in their single player campaigns, is that like you are, like there's a lot going on around you, like you said. I'm glad you mentioned the checkpoints. I felt like the checkpoints were very like there were a lot of them. I like, even though there were a couple of parts that I struggled getting through, I always felt like the checkpoints were very generous, and I never lost that much time by dying in the middle of battle. So I was thankful for that.
Yeah, there are like multiple checkpoints within sections of like a level, and while you'll have to re-kill some enemies and stuff like that, it still it doesn't like ever give you too much to chew on again. Like there's rarely an occasion where you're going to be like, oh my god, I have to do all of that again. Save for one level later in the game that is kind of miserable, but luckily you didn't have to play it. It's one of those things where it's like they especially like on the harder difficulties made it feel manageable, even if it's just in little chunks.
Yeah, exactly. I very much appreciated that. And I was playing on normal difficulty, so maybe that had something to do with it. I would have to say my favorite big set piece in the game kind of almost doesn't seem like it is, but I think that it is. The first big base that you play a lot in and like gets invaded by the Covenant, once you're kind of done there, you escape from that base, and that's your first introduction to the Warthog, the kind of a military four-wheeler vehicle, and it's your first introduction to the vehicles of this game, and it's like this big escape sequence where you're driving, and then like you have teammates who are on the in the vehicle with you, like shooting at the enemies that you're trying to like escape from, and it has a big like machine gun on the back that a NPC, at least if you're playing not with co-op, is using to kind of help mow down the enemies. And it's like this big like escape, and you're like driving through and you're being shot at. That was like the most fun thing I did in this game, was trying to like navigate that situation. So I thought that was a great blend of the real Halo themed vehicular combat of this game and these huge set pieces that the series is known for. Do you know the sequence I'm talking about?
Yeah. It's like you go out. You are in like Africa is like I think the setting for the majority of this game. Like you have like Mombasa and stuff like that you go to, and this one is like a base set in Africa, and like you drive out and you're kind of going across the plains and fighting a bunch of brutes and grunts and stuff like that are airdropping in and attacking you as you escape. It's a really fun level and like a really good looking one too, like aesthetically I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think it would be fair to say that the vehicular combat of this game is definitely a selling point, especially with the co-op aspect of it. Is that a part of this game that you particularly like, or you think is super important to the overall gameplay experience of this game?
Yeah, there are like these like sections of Halo that are just series standard. There's the guns, grenades, melee aspect to the combat. That like that little like trifecta is like all of it. And then the vehicles uh, are like another part of that like Halo equation where you have to have a bunch of weird, differently operating vehicles. Like in one set piece, in the one set piece we played last night, there are like 4 different vehicles that you can gain access to. There's a Warthog, the Mongoose, the Ghost, and I think it's the Chopper, the Brute vehicle, where it has like it has like 2 giant wheels in the front, and like a kind of a smaller seat behind it. And like if they catch you in front of it, they like kill you instantly. Um, that's like in like getting on each of them and how differently they feel, but how they also like feel good to drive is just like kind of a unique like achievement that Bungie hit during that era, I think.
Yeah, it does seem like those are very integral to the Halo formula. I'm actually curious to see how that's iterated on in the later Halo games. If you get like more types of vehicles, or if it's just like the core ones that everyone knows, and if there's any like interesting additions to vehicular combat. I felt like it was really at a sweet spot for this game.
Yeah, I think that when it's weird because I think that a lot of what 343 is doing right now, not to get into too much of a digression, is kind of still trying to capture what makes Halo Halo. Like we're on like the like Halo Infinite's on the horizon. It's very like close to release. It's supposed to release in I think the last quarter of this year or the first quarter of next year, or something like that. Soon, and it I think that's going to be the next kind of look at whether or not they can like really put together a new Halo experience that feels like Halo. But like 4 and 5, while 4 was good, um, both games didn't really introduce too many new things to the equation, especially like vehicles. They kind of just like went with what series standard by that point.
Sure.
So but I will say like Halo 1 through 3, they were all about introducing new vehicles and and like subtypes within those vehicle types, and ODST and Reach did a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, well, that's good that they kept something that was so unique about this franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to say, when it comes to the actual core gameplay loop of this game in the single player, where you're mostly walking around with guns that you start equipped with and that you find, and you're just like mowing down the bad guys, you're throwing grenades, you're using cover, you're just like mowing down all of these aliens. I have to say the gameplay was a bit more arcadey than I was expecting going in. I don't know if I just have very dim memories of how this game played out. The very first time that I played it years ago. Halo 2 is the only one that I played. That was many years ago. Or if my memory is just cloudy based on all of the other shooters that I've experienced since this game came out. But it really felt more arcadey than I was expecting. I thought it would be a lot slower or tactical, and it was to a point. But that's the word I kept coming back to describe the shooting gameplay loop is arcadey. How do you feel about that?
No, I agree with it. It's also kind of a goofy game. Like some of the weapons kind of lead to like funny encounters, and like it's the gameplay is nowhere as serious as the story tries to be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where like maybe that disparity comes in. Like you watch these super serious cutscenes, and then you get in the gameplay, and there's like soldiers and like aliens like barking out like like funny quips and stuff, and like the weapons themselves just do like these really like comical like unexpected things. Like like one of the things you get is like the gravity hammer. Whenever you hit someone with that, they will go flying across the map, and it's just like a very like I said, it's very disparate from what the story is pitching, and the gameplay is very much like, here's this like sandbox, go play in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it kind of I would say it probably helps with the co-op gameplay, because you want co-op to be like a very like fun experience. You want it to be like, just you and maybe a stranger or a friend just having fun together. And I think that more kind of less tactical way of playing helps that type of gameplay. I think I would you agree with that?
Yeah, you got to have those water cooler moments in this game because I think what happens a lot of the time whenever you're playing a game with like friends and it's not really doing a lot moment to moment to like entertain, you're gonna change the game out. You're gonna go play something else, And I think that they were pretty focused on making the game fun and like give you things to talk about while you're playing, and that's it. Basically, like it creates player engagement both through the actual gameplay and like what the game's asking you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Another kind of half of the loop that I think we need to talk about, like, elephant in the room, as we've alluded to, is like the actual feel and controls for the game and how they've aged.
Right.
I think the loop holds up, like what the gameplay is asking, but I think that a lot of the modern conveniences and like multiplayer, like I guess first person standardization, for as much criticism as it might get, for being so homogenized, is kind of missing from this. It does feel aged due to not having some of those features, like something as simple like a sprint button.
Right. That's something I wanted to make sure to highlight. This game, and to my understanding, both Halo 1, 2, and 3, all three of those lack any sort of like button that you would press to be able to move faster, to sprint. That was really killing me, especially towards the like once I actually kind of got good at the game and the set pieces got larger in scope and there weren't vehicles for me to use around. I was really like being like, man, I really want to just be able to hit this button and be able to sprint. I feel like it would be really hard for a game like this to exist without something like that. The fact that this doesn't have that feels dated, because I just don't think you'd be able to get away with that in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're Doom, but Doom's already like a really fast game already. Like your character's already moving very quickly. The pace doesn't feel slow. Halo didn't have that consideration because it wasn't like trying to keep up with industry standards. So yeah, like it led to an inadvertent like aging of the gameplay. Especially since, and this is something that like Halo franchise veterans will like, I mean, you just can't deny, the spaces are so big in this game, and when you move so slowly, it's just all that much more obvious, especially like whenever you're trudging from like a checkpoint after a death, that's where it can feel a little like tedious.
Yeah, I think that's what really highlights it and makes it feel bad, is the size of the maps that you're playing in. So yeah, that's really kind of lends to the dated feel of it. One thing that kind of bothered me as well is that there were a number of times in the game where I was confused about where I was supposed to go. And I did eventually find out that if you are stuck or you don't move quickly enough, the game will eventually tell you where you're supposed to go with a mission marker. But it kind of felt bad that sometimes I felt like I needed to just like wait for that to pop up. Did you now I know like all of the maps are just like ingrained in your head, but did you have, coming back to this game, did you have any experiences like that where it was really like hard to find out where you were trying to go?
Yeah. Someone who's played that game like so many times, yeah, I still have difficulty like remembering, and maybe part of it's just been that it's been so long. It is an issue, and like I'm gonna say, like I don't agree that there should be like a blatant marker, because like I feel like that's where things start to feel a little bit too handholdy for me. But I do think that your objective should be obvious through your level design. Like a lot of modern games these days, like the flow of the level will take you where you need to go, and they can kind of fool you into thinking like similar to like Dishonored, kind of fool you into thinking that you got there more on your own than you did. I think that is like, even back in the day when we were playing this game for the first time, like it was an issue that was very noticeable then. That like I think for the purposes of combat, the environments are great, but then whenever it comes to like how do I proceed, and there being like this little hole in the corner of a room that you have to jump through, like that preceded the main story was like a problem, you know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I would agree now that you've said that. The environments are great for combat, but they're not great for exploration or feeling like like you're really in the game world experiencing what the characters are
Yeah.
experiencing. I would definitely say that it's a balance, right? Because yeah, like you said, it would be great if the level design makes you feel like you're doing the right thing on your own. It doesn't have to hold your hand with a mission marker. That would be best. But I would definitely prefer a mission marker over having to like loop a room like four times. Be
Yeah.
like, my character clearly knows where they need to go, but I don't know where I'm supposed to go. So that was a little frustrating. This is something that I wanted to ask you. Something about shooting enemies. I kind of felt like there was a lack of like, I don't know how you would. You probably know like the correct term for this.
Impact.
I wanted some sort of like damage feedback on shooting the enemies, because I would shoot them and I like felt like I was really like hitting them and like really putting some bullets into them, but it didn't feel like I was like really doing any damage. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about here? Is that something that you've noticed as well with this game?
Yeah, no, it's immediately apparent, and I can tell you exactly why. This game was designed to be played with a controller, which has vibration built into it. And a
Okay.
lot of the impact and like gun feel is in those vibrations, and that is. I noticed that like immediately when I started playing on PC, like that feedback is gone on mouse and keyboard, because you don't have vibration in the mouse. If you play on console, like the kickback on the guns, like how the guns feel, there's like a chunkiness to like the assault rifle, and like the guns feel different when you fire them, because of like the rhythm of like the vibration and like stuff like that. And that's where you get that second half of the equation. I think that was like a notable loss, playing it on PC, that I was not expecting. Because I mean, like they do such a good job when you're playing on console of making that vibration kind of feel like part of the game. That whenever like I first started playing, it was just like the first thing that came to mind was like, oh yeah, this is missing, you know?
Yeah, that's a great point. This game was designed to be played with controller, and now I'm thinking maybe it was a mistake to not even like try to think about that. I feel like I missed a part of the experience by not trying to play with a controller. I think that's something I'm going to have to think about for future exhortations. If it's a game that was designed for a controller, I should probably try it with a controller. I'm glad you were able to put a fine point on that idea. It was kind of just nebulous for me, but you're absolutely right with that controller idea.
Yeah, and like that was not something I was expecting coming into this, because Bungie has previous like PC design experience, and so like whenever I was like, oh, Halo on PC, yeah, peanut butter jelly, like that, just I never crossed my mind until I started playing, and this was like the first time because I replayed Halo ODST, like I want to say when I first got my PC about a year ago. That was one of the first things I checked out, was because it was like it was on Game Pass,
Yep.
and as soon as there's like a suppressor weapon that you get in the beginning of the game that like feels super good. I fired that and was just like, oh my god, I
Yep.
think I have to connect a controller. This is a big miss,
Sure. Sure.
But anyways, yeah, I'm glad we talked about that, because that is something that is just like glaring whenever I play on PC and with these games.
Oh, well, speaking of the weapons, that is another core part of the gameplay loop that I want to talk about. Whether it holds up these days is that this game really wants you to cycle through all of the different weapons that you come across during the game. You start out with kind of standard issue for Master Chief or any of the human characters, but like you don't really pick up all that much ammo for the weapons that you have. It expects you to find new and different types of weapons, both human weapons and alien weapons, and just kind of cycle through the types of weapons, find weapons that are appropriate for the situation that you're in, and you can even dual wield, which I think was added in 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, so you can dual wield different types of weapons and do stuff like that. I thought that was very fun. As much as I would like to just find the perfect weapon and just use it over and over again, I did like how part of the loop was having to think, okay, this weapon's about to run out of ammo. While it's quiet, should I try to find another weapon? Is there a cool alien weapon that does something interesting that I could take over? Or should I keep using this gun because it looks like it's doing well in this situation, and maybe I'll pick up, just a small amount of ammo for it. So, big props to them for that. The way that was implemented was very fun.
Yeah, I enjoy that a lot about this game, because there's going to be a lot of situations. Like, I think most games like take the approach that, like, hey, here you go, pick your favorite weapon, play it how you like to play. I like it in Halo because it makes the gameplay feel very improvisational.
Yeah.
The sell on this game is that you're this big badass like super soldier dude, like bio and genetically engineered, that is like a master of all weapons. You can pick up anything and run with it, and like it does a good job of making you feel that way. Just kind of like casually throwing aside a shotgun and picking up a rocket launcher or like an alien weapon. It all works really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a big fan of that. To kind of wrap up our single player gameplay discussion here, do you think, just straight up, do you think that this gameplay loop of Halo 3 holds up in 2021, or is it just so dated that it's like good to look back on, but we would never want to play it in this day and age?
It's a tough thing since it's a game that's already released. I would say yes. If it were to release these days, I think that people might turn their nose up at it, maybe rightfully so. I think the loop is good. I think the mechanics need brushing up. Like if they did a remaster of 3, put a sprint button in there and kind of modernize the controls a little bit, I think that would be enough to like bring it up to current standards. Because I still think that the environments, the gunplay, all of that is still unique enough that it has a place.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm really glad that I played this. It's and this is kind of my theme for how I feel about this game. You can see the cracks in terms of how it's the strain of age on this game, but overall the gameplay loop is fun, and it's definitely it's just arcadey enough for you to be able to pick up and have fun with, and not have to think so much about like the strategy or the tacticalness of it, but you can nerd out about that kind of stuff if you want. So I think there's definitely room in the modern gaming landscape for a take on FPS of this caliber is not the right word, of this like style, right?
Yeah. I think this is one of those like games, like, and trying my best to put my bias aside, I think this is one of those games that like lives up to it. I mean, to its legacy. I mean, you can kind of see why it was special, even though it's kind of started to like tarnish a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So that's the single player of this game. But let's talk a little bit about the multiplayer. And this is really where the fans of Halo come out, right? Like a lot of the nostalgia for this game, I think, comes from the multiplayer. And you probably played a ton of this back in the day. Is that right?
Yeah, it was like, 2 a.m. lobbies with friends, like yeah, we've been playing all afternoon into like the early hours of the morning type thing. This was a large chunk of my like teenage years, is like not just Halo 3, but just Halo multiplayer in general, but Halo 3 in particular. Like even after Reach and the other games came out, like we would all still go back to Halo 3 because it was just like it introduced Forge, which was like fans could make their own like maps in multiplayer modes.
Oh, okay.
And it was super expansive. It wasn't just like, oh, you can make a kind of like a cute little map. It was like very impressive, the stuff that people made.
Mm-hmm.
like full on race courses or just small like tight multiplayer arenas that like so many mini games like Griffball, which became like a actual like franchise standard, like it actually became an official mode in the
Mm.
game.
Yeah.
Started as fan modes, you know, and it's one of those things where it's like this is like if the single player is this catered like kind of like cultivated experience for the player, the multiplayer is like pick your flavor, you know, you want it serious, you want it goofy, like what do you want, and it has it for you.
Yeah, that's really good that the developers kind of allow for that kind of freedom in multiplayer, because that's what people want, right? Is the freedom to basically enjoy the game in the way that they want to, in contrast to the very tightly curated single player experience, like you said. So like with the multiplayer, I'm just approaching it thinking about like how it kind of differs from the single player. And I gotta say, just overall as a rule with the games that I have played, it feels like the multiplayer moves at a much slower, more tactical pace than the single player. It definitely seemed, like I was running and gunning quite a bit in the a single player, and I felt like I was rewarded for doing that in a way. But you really can't do that in the multiplayer. You'll just get like shot to hell the moment you try to poke your head out and try to jump around. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, they're different beasts entirely. I think most games use the single player campaign to like kind of like show you what to expect if there is a multiplayer component. I think the connection between the single player and the multiplayer is just that like Halo introduces you to like the campaign introduces you to the mechanics, but that's about it. Like once you get into the multiplayer, it is like you're not the only super soldier in this arena. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you all hit very hard. You all like, you can all use the same weapons that, like your enemies couldn't really use in the campaign.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, because everyone kind of moves at the same pace that as you, has the same like ability to, or the same accuracy more or less than you. So yeah, it's much more of a even match. So I did think it was fun once I kind of caught on to the pace and like what I had to do to be able to get like shots off on the opponent. I felt like grenades needed to be used a lot more
Mm-hmm.
thoughtfully to be able to try to get people around the corner while they're trying to get their shields back up. Trying to get headshots with the sniper rifle from a any sort of distance. It was fun once I kind of got to speed on it. So I'm glad that like it was still fun once you realize kind of what pace you had to go at to be successful.
Yeah, and the multiplayer gets better with every entry, in my opinion. Like even with like 4 and 5, the multiplayer was still like the spot to be. It was still very fun. It was still very well designed. Like that part of Halo hasn't really gone away. I think that it's in need of new ideas these days. Back when Halo 3 came out, it was very like revolutionary, like to use a frustrating industry term, but like it like kind of earned that. It was like one of the biggest multiplayer experiences you could have back then, and it was a lot of fun. These days, yeah, it needs some adjusting, I think.
Yeah, I would say, and I don't know how it was perceived when it first came out, but I would say this seems like the Halo 3 multiplayer seems like it did all of the basics extremely well. Like
Mm-hmm.
it has all of these like really fun and crazy like fan created social games, but when you get to the like competitive part, the like a team deathmatch, what's the name for the team deathmatch in this? It's eluding me right
Team
now.
Slayer.
Yeah, Slayer. That seems like they really just wanted to make sure the basics were done incredibly well, and I think that's probably why this multiplayer is so well regarded, because it was just done so well, just kind of baseline. So I definitely got that impression as playing.
Okay, I feel like you're gonna have some hot takes for this next segment.
Okay, all right.
Would you say that's correct? Talking about the story and characters here.
I do have some hot takes on here. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the story and the characters. So this game came out in 2007. I think we can all kind of know what like the gaming culture was like in 2007, for better or worse. And I definitely could see that culture seeping through in the story and presentation of this game. So Jordan, I want to ask you, does this game, the story, does it have too much dude bro energy?
Yeah, it does.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's pretty bad. At the time, it wasn't one of my favorite stories. I like some of the character moments that happen in the game. Like, there are redeeming qualities for sure. But this is like military hoo-ah. Isn't it great to have guns and kick ass and let's take care of these like Covenant assholes? You know, like it was very like very self-serious story-wise, and the just being like amongst muscle-bound badasses that would like call you a pansy without like a moment's hesitation is just, it's an energy.
That is exactly what I thought. This game has such a weird mix of serious story moments and like this like campy dialogue that was to use a 2021 term, was just really cringe.
Yeah.
It's super hard to be like, to care that the Covenant is like coming for the Ark, and that humanity is like under attack, and there's this alien invasion where there's all this just like silly dialogue. It's very like hoo-ah, army good, big macho, masculine energy mixed in with just like the silly dialogue, like the grunts for the Covenant. I don't know what they're called, but they're like triangle looking guys. How they had just these like silly, like comical quips as you were like shooting them and killing them. It was just a real weird mix of serious and campy.
Yeah, and you actually said their name. They're the Grunts.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that was really funny. So like that is definitely like the disparity in Halo. And I like the goofy parts of Halo, and I always have. Like, because I think those parts work. Like the Grunts being terrified whenever you kill the elite who like leads their like group. Or the brute, I guess in this in the case of this game, they have behaviors. The AI has like stuff that they do and say, and there are like these funny moments that come as a result. Mm-hmm. But then you go back into the story, and it's just like it should work, but it doesn't, because of like the almost like the fetishism of like the military in this game. Like they are very proud to be in the military.
Oh yeah, it's very pro kind of use of state force to achieve a goal, right? I kept having flashbacks to like when the army would like come to my high school with like the I know that they used to do this, but they didn't come with the truck that was like filled with like video games. It was like, come in and like play a first person shooter and learn about the army. But they would come and do like a physical challenge to see if you're up for being in the army. And I definitely got that vibe from the human faction in this game.
Yeah, it's, like you said, very 2007. What do you think about Master Chief?
I absolutely understand why Master Chief was the phenomenon he was. For the time, I think he was the perfect thing for gamers who felt that they were the strongest, the smartest in the room, that really wanted to like prove themselves, especially in online multiplayer. He is the perfect character to kind of project yourself onto. He is the strong, stoic ideal, and he's also just a good guy. Like he's rough, tumble, violent, but he's also just good in a way. Like as far as I know of the story, he never like makes a wrong choice or makes a mistake or says the wrong thing. Like I am not surprised at all that Master Chief became as popular as he did.
He is a less good Captain America, I think, but that's still good.
Sure,
it's
absolutely.
it's like he works. I never thought that Halo as a series succeeded at the whole like you're not this character, you're yourself. We're empowering you. I thought that I always felt like the Master Chief. You know what I mean? Like that was just always like That was just always where my mindset was. And I don't think that when games do that, it succeeds. But I think that like the character you're playing is likable enough and enjoyable enough to play as that you feel like a badass, which is like where it does succeed. Like you may not feel like yourself, but you do feel like that god level empowerment whenever you fight like a squad of like 20 dudes and like slaughter them all.
Yeah, absolutely.
It works.
Yeah, and all the player characters are so excited to see, or the human, like, on your side characters are all just like so excited to see you and always think you make the right choice. And it's like, oh yeah, Chief's here. It's a Spartan. We're gonna win now. That was very. I could understand how people would find that to be very appealing, like uplifting. Make you feel good as you play.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense for sure.
What
did you think about? Go ahead.
He is definitely a good choice for like the face of Xbox. You know how like PlayStation has like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, and then later like Jack and Daxter, Solid Snake. I think Master Chief, rightfully so, was a great choice to be like the face of Xbox.
Yeah, he's not like the most layered character, and his story really isn't the most like twisty turny. Like he's got a pretty point A to point B, like I kill the bad guys, like type story, But it's still fine. Like it works, and he has a very iconic look, like a good, very identifiable look. And he's enjoyable to play as, and I think that's all you really need for him to work.
One thing that I was thinking about while playing this is I kept thinking about Doom 2016 and the Doom Slayer. Like obviously the Doom Slayer is not Master Chief. Like they have very different attitudes towards what they're doing, but that idea of being like a faceless like super soldier that is able to kind of just take charge, be strong, stoic. I definitely feel like Master Chief had to have been some sort of inspiration for the Doomslayer in Doom 2016.
I mean, I think so. Down to like the armor color and stuff like that. It does seem very much like that's where they got the idea from. And it's kind of weird seeing them under the umbrella now these days too. Both the Doomslayer and Master Chief are Microsoft characters.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, it's probably a cycle too. I'm sure that the original Master Chief was inspired by the original Doom guy from the original Doom games. I bet that's where that kind of look-alike lineage comes from. It's like a cycle, right?
Yeah, snake eating its own tail. It strikes again.
Yeah, I think so too. I do have to say the Arbiter in this game didn't really feel like I was getting a lot of personality from him. I could not really tell you much about what he was doing or what his motives were, other than he was just working with the humans. How did you feel about the Arbiter in the story of this game?
I 100% agree, and it's super disappointing because his story was awesome in Halo 2. Like his like one of the big twists in Halo 2 was so like one of the franchise enemies that you go up against are the Elite. So these tall, like kind of long necked, like like four mandible, like mouthed, like dudes. They're very iconic to the series, and they were like your main source of contention in Halo 1. In Halo 2, one of the big twists was that after you play the introduction as Master Chief, you load up a level and you're playing as an Elite. Named the Arbiter, and it's awesome. And like he has this like storyline where he is this ostracized, like he was in charge of the group that was protecting the Halo that Master Chief blew up in the first game. And he's been stripped of all of his like rank and like put in this punishment armor and basically sent on a mission to go kill Master Chief and go like claim another Halo and stuff like that. And he has a really great story in 2, and they used him in 3, which everyone was really excited about. Oh, we're gonna have Chief and Arbiter together the entire game, and it just fails to meet the expectation because they don't just give him a backseat in the story. He's just all but removed.
Yeah, that's really disappointing. Really wish that he could have had some more personality as playing. That's really disappointing.
Yeah, especially considering they had Keith David voicing him, who's like a classic like video game voice actor. He's like, he has a great voice, and they just criminally underused him in this game.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So going from a great voice to a really not terrible, just kind of cringy voice, to talk about the human faction, the UNSC. Johnson, the guy that you first meet at the beginning, where he's like puffing on the cigar and he's very like, he's got a lot of drill sergeant energy. He was just such a caricature, that was really hard to take him seriously as a character. And that really sets up the entire human faction, the UNSC. Just this is where the whiplash between a serious story and all the campy elements was really pronounced. I could not vibe with a lot of what the UNSC was doing or how they were portraying themselves in the story.
Yeah, and like a lot of the criticisms that we were like kind of lumping at the tone of the game kind of like applies back here to them. Like it's like they're just not a fun group, not a very lively group to be around, and the characters that are supposed to be lively are caricatures, like you say, and it's just not a very good like delivery like for them. It feels they feel paint by numbers, and it feels like all of the passion was put into like the alien enemies.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially when you look at character designs, because the humans look just damn ugly in this game.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Johnson looks okay. Keyes looks okay. But the one kind of like the big commander, the guy, yeah, he just looks so awful. It's terrible.
Yeah, the one that Ron Perlman voices. I forget his name, but yeah, his face is just like, oh man, just super craggy, like
Sure.
horrible. I don't know. But yeah, to get away from the human characters, what did you think about the aliens in this game, the Covenant and the Flood?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I first want to say I thought it was cool that it wasn't just one enemy faction. The fact that you kind of switched in between enemy factions. You had the Covenant, which are more kind of humanoid in a way. They use human type tactics. I thought that was cool, and then you could kind of break that up with the more alien kind of horde, overwhelming flood. So I like that they had kind of two competing factions to get that difference in gameplay. I did enjoy playing against the Covenant. Well, the grunts weren't fun to play against. Did not like hearing their quips, but to fight the different types of elites, I believe that would use different types of weaponry, and you'd have to like think about that and kind of like you get those more tactical moments where it's like, okay, this guy's got a huge hammer, how do I keep my distance away from him, or what best to punch through this armor. That was a very compelling for me.
Yeah, and that's something that I think really holds up from this game like to today is the AI. They are all designed to do various actions, and they're hard to predict, and they like barring any sort of environmental interference, they are like really good in groups. They punish you for not paying attention to even something as small as a grunt who like is like suiciding you with a couple of grenades in their hands. You have to like constantly monitor everyone around you, and that kind of leads to that chaotic frenzy. And like the brutes, the guys that have the hammers that you kind of come across in the early game, are like, I like that the whole like they get weaker. You can tell they're getting weaker by one, their shields breaking, their armor breaking, and then eventually them going into this feral state where they're just like panicking and trying to like survive and like jumping with their bare hands at you. Like it's a very nice like visual clue into their status.
Yeah, that was very nice. And then to have that kind of broken up a little bit by the flood, which is very much just like horde. They come straight at you. You feel like you're being overwhelmed. It's a lot more like an alien or like a zombie game. I felt that was a nice way. I actually really enjoyed being able to use the more arcadey FPS controls and gameplay loop against the more kind of like crazy aggressive flood. I really enjoyed the gameplay aspect against those enemies.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I mean, the Flood were infuriating in the first Halo. Whenever you first come across them, they're very like the section that they are introduced. They are super oppressive, and the ammo is like you just don't have enough because they like they like revive if one of like the little Flood things like infects their body. But like it's managed much more effectively in 2 and 3. 3 especially, like they fall apart depending on the weapon that you're shooting them with, so they can't really be like revived. So if like you shoot a flood like point blank with a shotgun, that's it. They're done. They're not going to come back. So that makes like shotguns and like energy swords like really high value weapons because they actually like reduce the numbers of the flood, which I think balances them out more and makes them more enjoyable to fight against.
Yeah, sure. And I just love their aesthetic. Like I know it's kind of that's like a trope for like, the alien race that like doesn't really think or feel. They're just kind of mindless monsters that like take over and overwhelm you. I know that's a bit of a trope, but I did really like the aesthetic of the flood. I think it worked really well for the gameplay feel that they were trying to go for.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's and it really like works to play as like the antithesis to the Covenant. Like the Covenant are like tight AI, like very like good patterns and stuff, like strategic almost. And then the Flood are just like we are literally just going to throw everything at you, and you have to kind of like it's more about resource management and like spatial awareness than anything at that point. It like changes the pacing of the game.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So both of the enemy factions I did like for different reasons for each, and I felt like the enemy AI was just in both cases was just done really well. It really helped the gameplay loop feel like just kind of arcadey fun in a way. So I think they did a good job with it.
Yeah, I agree.
So all of that said, how about we just kind of wrap up our thoughts here? Like I said before, I do think this game is a little dated by today's standards, but it's still fun to play. I would recommend if anybody's interested in going back and trying this game, I definitely would recommend it. And I'm glad that the Master Chief Collection, which I believe was recently published, it's pretty new, still allows people like a really like a good package for people to enjoy these games, especially the Halo 3 specific multiplayer. I'm really glad that they're still allowing players to enjoy these old games instead of like, nope, you don't get to play Halo 3 anymore. It's old news. You have to play, the brand new one. I'm glad that they're kind of keeping it alive with this new package.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's nice being able to revisit these games too, and I can say that this, as long as Game Pass exists, this is not the last that we're going to be talking about Halo on this podcast, if I can help it.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely showing its age, Halo 3 in particular, but I do think that the series still has something to offer the video game industry, and I have high hopes for Halo Infinite too. That's going to be on Game Pass day one.
Oh, nice.
I think we may have to check into that when that hits.
That is cool. That like for Xbox specific stuff that they can do day one Game Pass. That's huge. Like they're like so many people. That's going to do so much work to have them just be a part of the zeitgeist. Like people like me who aren't really attached to the Halo franchise can be like, oh yeah, this new highly anticipated game is coming out, and I'm already subscribed to the thing, and I can play it day one, and then I'm going to go on Reddit and talk about it. I'm going to post about it on like Twitter or Facebook. That's huge in terms of like getting the community's attention, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really try hard not to rub Microsoft's shoulders too much during this situation because, like, they're able to do this because they are a like worth billions of dollars company.
Sure.
They have a lot of money and they can just kind of like dig their heels in and like really like do stuff like this. But the reason why we're doing like the Game Pass Summer is because this program is like incredible, regardless of how it's like funded or like sourced or whatever. This is like a great place to play like good games, and they're like being able to pay $5-10 a month depending on like the platform you're on and play all these games for, I mean, as close as you can get to free is like, it's great. And like I can't recommend picking up the service enough because of stuff like this.
Yeah, for sure. I have some quick hits for you.
Hit me, baby, one more time.
Is the Master Chief a dweeb?
Whenever Halo 3 came out, I don't think so. I think he was fine.
Yeah.
Definitely a product of the 2007, like, gaming is cool, Doritos, type thing.
Yeah.
I think today he is definitely a dweeb. I don't think it's his fault. I think he's a product of his era. But yeah, I don't think Master Chief has aged super well.
Do you think underneath that helmet he's wearing the flame print beanie?
Yeah, he's got. I mean, so he was bioengineered or something like that. Like he was like a lot of like surgical work was done to him.
Sure.
And I think he might even be bald. If so, he's got to have the flame cap beanie on.
Is it like a Darth Vader situation? Is he just like all messed up underneath that helmet, and that's why he never takes it off?
That's my assumption. I think he is like not looking good under there. If I had to guess, I know that Bungie's philosophy for keeping the helmet on was because they wanted the character to like the player to feel like they're the Master Chief and like not revealing his face like helped that. But I think that if you want to like get into like story reasons, yeah, I think he's just like a monstrosity under there, which would make him less of a dweeb. That's cool.
Yeah. I don't think he's a dweeb. I think he's very cool. He's just outdated. He's your like uncle who has like a lot of cool stories about like the 80s, but you can tell he's a bit of a burnout and kind of didn't really get his life together and kind of is suffering for it. But he's still cool, and you still want to hear those stories about those late night gaming sessions in the mid 2000s.
Okay, I agree with what you're saying there. That's actually a really good analogy. But I think the thing that like puts him into the dweeb category for me is like I think about this hypothetical. You go into a party, and a guy with like a leather jacket with like those flames we all used to draw on pieces of paper back in the day, like the really like dumb animated flames.
I was cooler. I was cooler than that, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So like he's wearing a shirt with that, and he comes up to you, and he's a military recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
He really wants to get you on like down with like going over to the Middle East and doing some damage. Isn't that pretty dweeby?
Yeah, that's it's not good energy. It really isn't.
No, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Halo Infinite's coming up. Maybe we'll get a little bit of character redemption on that front.
Sure. Yeah.
Will, I got to ask you, what gun brought you the most joy?
Oh yeah. So this game has so many cool guns. I was a big fan of the shotgun, a little basic, but the shotgun did its work. It was a lot of fun to play. I like the Covenant rocket launcher. That was a lot, or not. It's like a grenade launcher. That was a lot of fun. But man, I don't think anything feels as good as the energy sword does. That you can just run up and one hit melee just anything, including your co-op teammate. It just that definitely felt the best.
Yeah, like I don't think there's any controversy here. I think I agree. That is like one of the most iconic Halo weapons, if not the most iconic. Like the sticky grenade and the energy sword, that is Halo. That is like Halo DNA, and they feel so satisfying to use. Like I'm gonna mention the sticky grenade because my first choice is also the energy sword, but I got to give props to it. But like throwing a sticky grenade and nailing someone in the head with it is the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate when they are like running at you when that happens and they blow both of you up. But even then, it feels great to hear that like that stick and then that boink sound whenever it's like you're like, oh yeah, I landed it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Honorable mention to, I believe, called the battle rifle. It's the scoped rifle that you start out with on most maps. A little basic, but I was using it to very good effect. It was good up close, far away, being able to zoom in. I did some good work with that rifle, and it just felt good to play.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was like it was introduced in Halo 2, and it became like an instant favorite for people. Like even whenever they brought the assault rifle back, which was like the classic like Halo weapon or whatever, the battle rifle still had a place because it just feels good, like the little 3-shot burst.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So one last quick hit question. I know that you've played a lot of Halo 3 in your life, but do you have a really good Halo 3 gameplay story, either in like single player or multiplayer, that like you will like always remember for the rest of your life?
I won't say gameplay because there's a ton of those I could probably go over, but I think it's like my experience with my friends that I like think about a lot. Me and my childhood best friend, his name's Ray. We would do like weekend like sleepovers or whatever, and just sit around and play video games the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that always like hits me is just whenever they release like a lot of special DLC on like monster cans and like Mountain Dew bottles and stuff like that, you could like get like special armor pieces for Halo. I liked going out to the stores and hunting those down and getting the codes from the inside of those packages and using them to get like cool like new armor like for your multiplayer avatar. It was great.
Oh yeah, mine's where I ganked you with the energy sword a second after you told me not to do it.
Who'd have thought that would be your favorite?
Jordan, thank you for going on this journey with me. I'm sure it was very nostalgic for you. It was a lot of fun for me. So thank you for joining me for that. I want to know what you are exhorting for our unfortunately, last episode for Game Pass Summer 2021.
Yeah, and maybe last for this year. I would like to, if Games Pass is still as great this time next year, maybe we can revisit it. We'll see.
Hey, it's your show. You can do whatever you want.
Heck yeah. Well, we're not leaving space for this one. I have a week off, and I'm really wanting to revisit a game that was initially disappointing to me. But I hear from friends and from what I've seen Tristan play of it that it has had a ton of improvements. And like I said, week of vacation coming up. I wanted a lot of time to play this, and I probably will just play a ton of it. We're going to be talking No Man's Sky on the next episode.
Oh, okay. I haven't played it. I am aware of the whole debacle going around it. I had heard that a lot of work has been done on it, but I don't know like what that work actually entails. This is a good one. I have no idea what to expect here.
All right, we're going to fly in blind. Also, this game does have co-op, Will, and I have a week off. Just saying, if you have time to play, I would like us to hop online and play some No Man's Sky together. Okay. I've been watching Tristan play a good bit of this, and it was like, oh my God, yeah, I want to check this out again. And then I realized it was on Game Pass, and I was like, okay, no, that just has to be my choice. I have to play this. So,
okay.
Yeah, we will be taken to the stars, and, I won't. Let's go into this blind. Let's not talk about it at all until then. I want to see what you think.
Okay, sounds good. I am so excited to play this and figure out what's going on with this game and talk about it with you on our next episode.
Yeah, it'll be a good conversation piece no matter what, even if you hate it, I think.
Sure.
All right, let's get into some back matter. You promised me last week you would have a lot to talk about when we close this episode out.
I don't. No. I've got a lot of things up in the air, got a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak. But the two things I want to talk about, I've really enjoyed Covain, and I haven't stopped playing it. So I am not done with the game, but I'm a little bit further into the game, and I think when I have some free time and want a break from your exhortation, I'm keeping Code Vein installed. I definitely want to keep playing it until the end, and I'm having a good time with it. I am I don't know how far I am in it. I'll just say that I'm at the very clearly an Andor Londo ripoff area, and I'm excited to play more. So I'm doing that. The new Magic the Gathering set came out on Magic Arena, and I haven't really been able to play it just yet, but I cracked the sealed pool online, and I was looking at it before we started recording earlier, so maybe I'll have some sealed update for the next episode. But that's what's going on with me. What are you up to, Jordan?
Yeah, so I actually, like I said, going on vacation this next week, and I actually wrapped up Dark Souls 3, for the upteenth time today. You actually came in whenever I was close to the end of the game yesterday, and you watched me try to get some multiplayer going with another player I was helping from Reddit.
You have to stop, dude. You have to stop. Am I gonna have to run an intervention for you to get you to finally put the Soulsborne down?
You'll have to drag me kicking and screaming and maybe cut off my thumbs. It's not going to be easy, and I won't make it for you. Won't make it easy for you. But I just really love that game. I hope one day we can circle around to talking about it, because I feel like it'll save a lot of the face that Dark Souls 1 has robbed of itself for you in terms of the online ecosystem. Because they really do make a lot of good quality of life changes in that game that improve it a lot. That said, I closed the book on that, and this last summer sale we had on Steam, Horizon Zero Dawn went on sale, and that has been a game that I have been eyeballing for quite some time. I've never pulled the trigger on it, but I'm a big fan of dinosaurs. I'm a big fan of Metal Gear, and this is a game that combines both of them. And I have a week off in my lap, and I think I'm just going to use that time to toggle between No Man's Sky and Horizon Zero Dawn and just really get my sci-fi on.
That sounds like a wonderful vacation. Godspeed, Jordan.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm excited to give updates. We'll probably be watching a lot of movies, and I'll have some updates on that as well. I know I should be doing more, maybe traveling more, but I'm so tired by work that I'm just excited to just kind of catch up on stuff that I've really been wanting to sink my teeth into.
Yeah. I hope that you have a wonderful time on your vacation playing these games.
Yeah. Okay, so anyways, I think this is a good place to close it out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, let's wrap this one up.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of Dandies. You can follow Will on Twitter at AgroRhetoric and myself at Action Pancake. We'd love it if you'd follow along with our exhortations and stay up to date with all the latest Dandies excitement at Dandies Pod. And then, as always, please follow us on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, comment on our podcast, posts on our YouTube videos. We want that community engagement. We want to get those opinions into our podcast atmosphere if we can. It adds more to the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but otherwise, you can join us here next episode for another spin with the Dandies.
Later.